spoken a lot the last 2 months. Is a highly emotional moment for me. My alma mater, place where it all began, where all the screw-ups, hardship, and some of the joy all started right here. So when I look out in the audience, I see me. I'm still trying to scratch the rash off my body that I got from talking to St. Thomas Academy first. So now I see the green and I'm home. I see the black and white and I'm home. So it is wonderful to be able to speak with you today. And I hope that I'm able to pass along some perspective that you can use in your life. This is just as good as it gets, I'll tell you. So before I begin, what I'd like to do is introduce a buddy of mine. His name is Buford. Buford is the name that I've given to the complications from the surgery that failed to remove the cancer that's inside my body. Ground zero is right here. And I found that it's easier to show pictures rather than to try to describe it. So this is Buford from the outside. And you can see the scar stretches all the way across my body. And that little hole that you see right there is what I call the bullet hole, because it looks like a bullet hole. It goes all the way to my intestine, and it leaks the contents of my stomach 24 hours a day. There's a hole there, developed from the surgery, and it will not heal on its own. And in order for doctors to sew it, they have to cut me wide open again and try to sew it together again, but that's what caused the hole in the first place, was surgery. So that's what I have, that's my normal, that's what I've had for 2 years. And then that catheter that you see hanging out the side of my rib cage, that runs through my liver and connects what's left of my liver to my body, because those parts no longer work. So if you give me the next slide, that's what Buford looks like from the inside. The orange outline is what's left of my liver, and the red outlines are the cancer. And I never was really good at math. I saw some of my older math teachers in here, they can attest to that. But I can see the math on almost like a ticking clock on life when I look at this picture, because it is what it is. And if you can click again. So you saw a picture of me from the front. This is a picture of me lying down, and you're looking from my feet up to my head. And you can see that there's not much liver left behind the mass or tumors either. So I'm on my 4th chemo trial. I've had a feeding tube where I've not been able to eat for 4 months. No food. Just try to imagine that for a second. Not being able to eat food for 4 months. I've had infections it's called sepsis. How many of you are familiar with the infection sepsis? Okay, so for those of you who don't know, it kills about 40 to 60% of the people who get it. And I've had 30 of those episodes in the past 2 years. And you can't tell from the lighting, but because my liver looks like that, my skin is very yellow, my eyes are yellow, my liver is not processing the toxins out of my blood. So in your bodies, the toxins in your blood are 0. That's normal. 25 or 26 is when it starts reaching fatal levels. And last week, my level was at 21. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. Now, I hope you hear enthusiasm and encouragement from me, because I'm going to give you everything I got today. All right? That's my deal for you. And what I'm asking from you is to really listen, to really hang on what I'm asking you to think about. Because this presentation that I'm going to talk to you about today is not about me. If anything, what I'm going to show you today, what I'm going to talk to you about today is like a pair of glasses. All I want you to do is put them on and look at life through those glasses. But look at your own life through those glasses. Now I call this Buford. That's my Buford. But Buford is really just another name for adversity, challenge. And I don't even have to ask if you guys are going through adversity or challenge at this point in your life. I know it. I know it as sure as I'm standing here, that you're facing your own Buford.
It doesn't need to be cancer. But when I speak to you all, I feel like I'm talking to my own 17-year-old son, a junior in high school right now, and my 12-year-old twins who are in 6th grade. So I'm going to talk to you the same way that I talk to them. That when my son broke up with his girlfriend, I would dare say that it was as heavy as my 6'9", 900-pound Buford. So I want you all to think about the Buford in your life right now. Maybe it's a personal relationship with your girlfriend or boyfriend, or maybe it's your parents. In fact, most of the Bufords that I can think of in life have to do with interpersonal communication, relationships with other people. What is your Buford? So that as I go through my remarks, you're thinking about how my remarks apply to your Buford. Is that a deal? Yeah. In the Army, we say hua, so I'm just going to give you that as a reply. Is that a deal? Hua. You guys don't sound very enthused. I feel more enthused than you are. Is that a deal? Hua. I am still not convinced. You want me to do push-ups? Is that what you want me to do? Now, is that a deal? All right, now we're cooking. All right, next slide. So, this is not a Debbie Downer presentation, all right? I know that I'm dying. I know that my time is drawing near, but the message that I have for you today is one of empowerment, of encouragement. That when doctors tell me you shouldn't be able to stand right now, you should be home just completely tired. You shouldn't even want to do any of this stuff. You shouldn't be able to do any of this stuff. That my message to you is this body, those pictures that I was just showing you, this energy, you all have it. I don't know if you know this or not, but we got the same design. Okay? Girls and guys, okay, some different parts, but the same basic design. All right? So I'm going to get into that as I talk about the things that I want you to chew on with your own Buford. So one thing about Buford before I begin. Buford doesn't suddenly make me an expert on everything. And you need to know that. I am just one perspective. I'm just one person making my way through life. I'm 41 years old now. So when you guys look at me, you can't think, I want to be just like him. Maybe you will. But you've got to remember that I'm where I am right now because I've had about 23, 24, 25 more years to work on life than you have. So again, this presentation is about putting on a pair of glasses. Deal? All right, you guys got it. You got to pass. All right, so 4 things that I want you to chew on, and then we'll get into some questions and answers, and you guys can blow the doors off. You can ask whatever you want from me about this experience. But before we begin, I want to establish a nice, uniform level of humility for all of us. And this is something that I have to do every day, so I'm not preaching to you. All right? The first thing I want you to do, I like it to be interactive. So I'm going to be asking questions. And I expect you to answer, at least in your own mind, if you don't raise your hand or do whatever. So the first thing I want you to do is put your hand in the air like this and make a circle. All right, now put it to your chin. Yeah, which way do I go? I saw about half of you go chin, but he put it on his cheek, so you moved it up to your cheek. Now, I even said chin with emphasis, but you all put it on your cheek. Why? Because that's where I put it, right? Now, how many of you have heard actions speak louder than words? All right, so most of you, just about all of you. And this is a 5-second lesson, a reminder for all of us, because I saw you adults putting it on your cheek too, on something that we need to be reminded of, something so simple that our actions speak louder than our words. Why am I telling you that? Why am I going to beat on that? Because there are people I have encountered in my past 2 years with cancer, but even before that, who believe fervently that words will mean more than actions. I don't understand how that's possible. This is all the proof I need. It took me maybe 5 seconds to prove it to all of you, and all you did was reflect it back to me, right? So which is more powerful, actions or words? You tell me, which one? Actions. All right? That's the end of that lesson. So I will tell you that every day when I wake up in the morning, like this morning, it's a challenge for me to get out of bed. It's a challenge for me to think about Buford, my Buford. At this time, 7 years ago, it was about waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning to make it to the Pentagon on time, knowing that I wasn't going to get home until my boys were in bed already. That was my Buford. 6 years ago, it was about being in Iraq, hearing a mortar going off and wondering, oh my God, am I going to make it home? What am I doing here? That was my Buford. So what's your Buford? Okay, so that's actions over words. It has to mean something. So if you can give me the next slide. Can you all see that from up there? So read those two sentences really quick. Okay, now shut it off. So what's the difference between the two sentences? One says that words have meaning. The other one says that words are mean, right? Things move so fast, especially today. Especially today. It seems like if we can't get a message into the top two little brackets on an iPhone or a BlackBerry, it doesn't get read. I can tell you that that's what it's like at work for me, but I'd be willing to bet it's the same way for you guys. In fact, you got tweets, and God, if you can't get it into 17 characters, you're lost. All right? Words mean things. Now, I hate to sound like grumpy old grandpa here with this idea, this notion that words mean things as you guys go through the texting age. And it's not about getting you to stop doing certain things with texting. It's to get you to understand that this is how we communicate. Words are how we communicate. And you're going to take it for granted. I took it for granted when I was your age. You're going to take it for granted. And so this exercise is one of underscoring the importance of these little things, like a comma, and how impactful that will be in your life as you're facing Buford. If you miss that comma, if you miss the meaning of a word, it could be your life. It could be whether you want to get up tomorrow. It could be the difference about whether or not you end your life tomorrow for those many people who choose that path. Words mean things, and words are mean things. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that with a personal experience that I had here at Cretin when I was a freshman. Cretin-Derham Hall, excuse me. When I was a freshman, it was Cretin. Bear with me. Okay, so humility. That's what these two exercises are about. The things that we think we know, but we need to challenge ourselves to think a little bit more about what they mean. So I'm going to give you 4 things to chew on, and then we'll get into question and answer. 4 things. Perspective, perseverance, personal courage, and then I dread offering this to high school students, but I think you can handle it. It's what I like to call an occasional middle finger. Now I know I have to explain that so that all of our students aren't walking around today going, hey, Colonel Weber told me to give you the middle finger. No, that is not what it is. So I will explain that part when I get there. So each of those first 3, they all start with P, so you can hang on to them. It's not only these 4 aspects that I want you to chew on, but they're the 4 that I have found to help communicate to you how to overcome a Buford. Because I know you're very young right now. This is probably the last thing on your mind, that you'll get cancer or that somebody you know will get cancer. How many of you have a family member who has cancer or a chronic disease? Okay, so it's coming. It is coming. The really big Bufords in life are coming. And the number one question I get asked is, how do you do it? How do you get through every day? How do you do this kind of stuff with energy and passion when you know you're going to die? When you know that your clock, everyone's clock is ticking, but I can hear mine like pounding in my head. And my answer is, just to start with, those 3 P's and the occasional middle finger. So perspective. We've all heard that word, perspective, right? Walk a mile in someone else's shoes. So the two things that I like to talk about with perspective are a loss of perspective and how do we gain perspective. So a loss of perspective. About 2 years ago, I was looking up at the TV. I was laying in my bed like a cut open deer carcass. You saw that scar that ran across my body? They had to cut that open. So it's a 17-inch wide scar, about 3 or 4 inches wide. And that was just open because the contents of my stomach were leaking into my abdomen. So I was laying in bed completely stoned on drugs that they had given me for pain. So there were times when I felt like I was hallucinating. And I looked up at the TV monitor and there was an elderly couple. They looked like they were in their 60s. And they were talking about a tragedy, a crisis, the worst thing that they had experienced in their entire lives. And I was laying there going, wow, what happened, you know? And then they showed a cruise ship. And they said a cruise ship had lost power. And I was like, oh boy, what happened? Did another ship run into it? Was it sinking? You know, what happened? These people they've lived life. This was something they described as a tragedy and a crisis. You know what they were describing? Warm beer. Finger foods. No ice. Oh my God. Now I know some of you in here, I'm not stupid, I was here. I know some of you think warm beer is a tragedy or a crisis. You shouldn't know that. But, you know, what do you do in life? Yeah, all right, now I see the snickering coming up back there. What do you do in life when you've used tragedy and crisis and the worst thing that I've experienced in my life on warm beer and finger foods? Where do you go from there? How do you describe life from that point forward? And now let's bring this back to reality with you guys here today. He is the worst teacher I've ever had in my life. He is the meanest friend I've ever had in my life. Words mean things. What kind of temperament do you use with your words to describe life, to describe the things that are surrounding you? So the example that I like to use about perspective and about losing perspective, when I was a freshman here, maybe 2 months into the school year, we had gym class, and we had one of the events that I dreaded the most was the showers. I just hated the idea of going in there naked with all those other guys, and I thought, just didn't want to do it. And we came out of that shower one day, and I was standing at my locker, and a tall kid about 3 lockers down from me said, hey, anyone notice Weber Papa Woody in the shower? Yeah, I kind of snickered myself at the time. And I thought maybe no one heard him. Just ignore him, pretend like nothing happened, just keep getting dressed. I got dressed a little bit faster. No, seriously, did anyone notice him? Watch out for Weber. He'll come up behind and get you in the rear. I felt a cold shock go up my spine. Dear God, please stop. Don't say any more. Stop it. Why are you doing this? I don't even know who you are. And then it was like blood in the water with sharks. And other students started jumping on board. And I left running out of that locker room. I thought it would end that day. I prayed to God that it would end that day. It didn't. It lingered on for another 3 years. I had Woody etched into my locker. People would call me Woodman. They would call me also, you try to find the nickname. Try to imagine one, and that's what I was called. Not every day, not constantly, just a drumbeat. And I will tell you that I wanted to kill myself after that first year. Because even the kids who didn't say it wouldn't talk to me, and I didn't know if that's why they wouldn't talk to me. And some kids, I will tell you, are classmates. They have written to me since I published this book, because I tell the story in the book, and have said, please, dear God, tell me I was not one of those kids. many of my classmates. And I have to tell you, the ones who write to me did. And they don't remember. Words, mean things. Complete loss of perspective on the part of those who are jumping on board. We don't think about this. And I don't mean to be righteous with you all as high school students. I was stupid. I said things when I was in high school too that I didn't mean. This one struck very personal. I swear, this is the reason that I love the merger with Durham Hall. Because I swear to God, girls saved me. All the boys had a distraction in my junior year. And Woody just faded away. But I hope that you can imagine, I hope that you can gain some perspective, walking a mile in my shoes, about what bullying can do to somebody else in your class. However insignificant you think that it is brutal, it is devastating to a person's life. And I'm not talking about teasing and stuff like that, all right? Again, I don't want to be righteous about this stuff. You can have fun, but you know where that line is. I'm convinced that you all know where that line is. So, perspective. How do we gain perspective? So he's talking about a loss of perspective. How can you gain perspective? Where do you go? How do you find it? Because I will tell you, there are adults twice your age, 3 times your age, who have trouble finding perspective. They're completely lost. President Obama, if they elect him, it will bring this country to an end. This country will change, it will be dead. If President Obama is elected again, it will be the end of this country. And yet I remember before him, if President Bush is elected again, it will be the end of this country. This is a loss of perspective. And yet these people believe it sincerely. And you, many of you, will fill those people's feet in the future. So how do you gain perspective? Well, let me ask you, where do you get your news? Do you just read the newspaper? Do you just watch TV? Do you only talk to your small group of friends? Or do you seek out the opinions of other people who disagree with you? All right? So the analogy I like to use is called going to the balcony. Now we've got a balcony up here. When you're down here on the dance floor, it's kind of hard to see or gain perspective because you're in the dance. It's hard to see way over on the other side of the room. So what you need to do is leave the dance floor and go up to the balcony. And can you all imagine getting a better view of the big picture from up there? So seek that in your life. So that's perspective. And perspective is the biggest piece that I like talking about, and the longest one, because it applies to everything in your life, not just dealing with Bufords. All right? So the second one, perseverance, never giving up. I'll use the bullying example that I just used as an example of never giving up. I will tell you that for the 3 years that I had to deal with the constant nicknames and mess of that experience, that I tried everything. I tried laughing about it. I tried joking about it. I tried threatening the boys who would make fun of me. I threatened to fight them. I did everything that I possibly could. I even contemplated suicide. And I thought just to finish the story on suicide, I thought the only people I'm going to hurt in the end are the people who love me. So that would be a stupid move. So I decided not to do that. But everything I tried failed. And like I told you, the only thing that saved me was girls from Durham Hall. Thank you, girls. My point in that is that never giving up doesn't always mean you're going to get what you want. That's the important thing to remember about perseverance. Okay? And there's 2 things I want you to chew on with perseverance. And actually I want to tell a joke right here in the middle, kind of get you spruced up a little bit. All right? Because we're a school of deep faith. Hua? All right. Ooh, that was a little louder. Okay, so this guy, he owns his home, and the rains are coming, and they say these are going to be the worst rains in history. And it's probably going to flood the whole area that you're in. And I was okay. So a city bus comes by the next day, and they're picking up all the people along the way. And they come to his house, and they say, come on, get on board the bus. This whole area is going to flood. And he says, no. I pray to God every day. I'm faithful. I'm religious. I'm spiritual. I have faith that God is going to take care of me. Despite these storms, despite this flood, He's going to take care of me. Bus leaves. Later that afternoon, the rain has been coming down so hard that the flood waters have risen up past the first floor of his house. He's now on the second floor of his house. And a boat comes by from the Coast Guard. Hey, dude, get in the boat. Come on, let's go. The floodwaters, this whole area is going to be underwater. No. I have faith in God to save me. That's how powerful my faith is. You're not going to deter me. So the boat leaves. Within the next 6 hours now, less than a day, the water's up to the rooftop. All right, and he's standing on the ridge of the roof with the waters all raging because this is so much water at one time. And a helicopter comes along. Sir, get in the helicopter, grab the ladder. No, you will not bend my faith. Right? Chopper takes off. You're getting the point here, right? Floodwaters come, they're so fast and swift, boom, he's gone. He's swooped up to the pearly gates. Before you know it, he's standing in front of God, and he says, God, I've been faithful all my life. You know, I prayed to you devoutly. I've read the Bible. I know what it says, that if you pray, your prayers will be answered. You know, paraphrasing here. What happened? Why did you forsake me? And God said, I sent you a bus, a boat, and a helicopter. What were you waiting for? And I say that with regard to perseverance because one of the number one thing that I have heard while I've been struggling through these past 2 years, but in particular when I've been deployed to Saudi Arabia or specifically Iraq, is I'll pray for you. It's a very common thing that we use socially. And it's a powerful thing and it's a good thing. I'm not poo-pooing that. But you have to ask yourself, where do your actions begin and where do your actions end and where do God's truly begin? And this is the thing that I want to sear into your memory, okay? If you remember one thing out of today's presentation, it's about the word hope. I hope you get better. I hope you come back safe. I hope you have a safe journey. I hope you get that promotion. I hope you get that job. I hope you graduate. Hope. Every time you use that word, when that word just sputters out of your mouth, I want you to like stick something proverbial in your leg and say, hope. Where does that hope truly begin? And where do your actions end? Because the promotion, the job, your graduation, anything in life, to include your Bufords, are not going to happen simply by praying to God to come fix them for you. This is my belief. This is my faith. And I'm just sharing it with you. I won't take anything away from what you all believe, but I want to challenge you with a question, at least a question that you ask yourself, regardless of where you are on that spectrum of how much God does or does not do in your life. Where do your actions end, and where does hope or God's actions truly begin? Hua? Okay. The other thing I want to offer to you is understanding the difference between can't and don't want to. So when I've been laying in the hospital and people say, I could never do what you do, and this thing about you going around and speaking to high schools, you know, I could never do that. I couldn't have, I don't have the same kind of energy, or wouldn't have the same kind of energy. How do you do it? I could never do that. And what I propose to you is to think about the fact that maybe it's something you don't want to do. This Friday, I am leaving for Iraq. Despite everything that I've shown you, despite the fact that my toxins in my blood are nearing fatal levels, I am traveling to Iraq on Friday for 10 days to visit with the family who calls me family in northern Iraq. Now, people tell me that's crazy. Well, it's crazy to you. But for a whole host of reasons, it's not crazy to me. It may be something you don't want to do, but it's not something you can't do. Fundamental difference between can't and don't want to. And right now, that's not so important to you all, because I know in high school, it's very easy to say, well, I don't want to, and it's good. But as you grow up, when you get into the real world, saying I don't want to your boss, saying I don't want to a family member after you get married, it doesn't float so well. Trust me. So you're going to have to figure out the difference between can't and don't want to. Because I think as adults what happens is we get so used to saying can't when we really mean I don't want to, that we truly believe that we can't do something. We can't overcome this Buford. Like after that episode that I had in the locker room. This is it for me. This is never going to go away. But it does go away. It does get better with your action. Okay, so that's perseverance. Personal courage. Now here's some interaction stuff again. How many of you think that personal courage, well, how many of you think you know what personal courage is? You all got an idea, right? Personal courage? How many of you think that personal courage is about being fearless? No fear. Raise your hand. Having no fear. Okay, some people itching their neck, not quite sure. How many of you think that personal courage is all about fear? Actually being scared to death. All right, good. So the reason I like asking this question about personal courage is that no matter what group of people I talk to, I actually get one of three answers. It has to do with being fearless, it has everything to do with having fear, and then a third group that doesn't answer with anything. All of you who kept your hand down were not quite sure. And I'm not beating any of you up, but something as basic a concept as personal courage. Yeah, I know what personal courage is. It's like that soldier who goes into the fight and just shows no fear. It's like a whole bunch of things, but I really don't know how to summarize it. So here's what I'll offer you about personal courage. That personal courage is all about the fear. It is all about human emotion. And you can't stop fear from coming forward. I'm being interviewed for a book right now called Fearless Leaders. And I took exception with the author about putting me in a book called Fearless Leaders because I said, I experience fear. I am not fearless, and I don't like promoting that it's possible to be fearless. Because I will tell you that this little badge right here is we get it for jumping out of planes. All right, and this one's for jumping out of helicopters on a rope. I will tell you that I never wanted to be sitting next to somebody who wasn't just a little afraid about what they were going to do. Because the fearful guy was checking his stuff, right? Hey, can you take one more look at this line back here? I just want to make sure before I jump out here. The fearless guy, or gal, was going, it's good. The jump master checked it. I'm ready to go. And that guy hits the ground like a lawn dart. He was fearless, and he looked really good going straight into the ground. So personal courage is about getting the stuff done that needs to get done in your life, even if you're scared to death. Or we'll use a John Wayne quote. I wish Bubs Boland was here, because he would have loved the John Wayne quote. All right, being scared to death, but being saddled up and ready to go anyway. So that's personal courage. And then the middle finger. So the middle finger is actually about 2,000 years old. A little history lesson for you here. All right, it dates back thousands of years as a sign of contempt towards somebody else, right? Please tell me you all know what the middle finger is. Everyone, who doesn't know what the middle finger is? All right, good. We're on even ground here. So, but the middle finger is often used as a sign of contempt towards another person. You give somebody the middle finger and you're giving it to them because of something that they did to you. But the middle finger that I'm talking about dates from a period that I like to latch on to when the English were at war with the French. And it was during this particular time frame, there were English longbowmen. And for those of you who don't know about the English longbow, it changed the tide of war. English longbowmen could get those arrows way out there, so they could kill the French before they could even get close to them. They would change the tide of war against countries. And so what happened was when the French would capture English longbowmen, they would cut their middle finger off, because the middle finger was what they used for their bow. So they couldn't use it. So English longbowmen, and English in general, began using the middle finger as a sign of contempt towards the French. But their middle finger had everything to do with what they were going to do with their middle finger. What they were going to do, not what they were giving to someone else. I'm going to take this middle finger and I'm going to do something about what you've done to me. Now, this is not a speech about war and the cause for war and whether it was right for them to go about doing it. But I will tell you that that concept underscores the thing that I want to pass on to you all about the middle finger. And I like to give one example. It's a fairly personal example. But when I was 28 years old, we already had one son. He was about 3 years old. And we wanted to have a second child. And the first child was, let's have a baby. Poof, we had a baby. Just like that. I'm guessing that you've all seen Just Around the Corner by now, so I'm not in uncharted territory here. You understand how babies are made. All right. Oh, I don't know. Poof, we had a baby. Then we wanted to try for our second child. No luck. A whole year, no luck. The second year we tried. No luck. And it started getting to the point, 2 years of trying to have a child, where intimacy became a chore. All right? We would get up during the day and you know, okay, it's time to try. Let's go. Let's just get this over with. Oh, geez. Yeah, okay, well, yeah, this afternoon, yep. A guy with this kind of attitude about something so powerful. For guys in particular, we know there's a difference between guys and gals, all right? And it was no fun, I'm telling you. By year 3, it was torture. Torture, dear God, no more trying. Tell me there's another way. Give me an immaculate conception. Something. And I went off to get tested, and we found out that it was me. And it was my first introduction to the inexact science of medicine, which I want to introduce all of you to. I was told that I was clinically sterile. And I said, what does clinically sterile mean? I understand what sterile means. What does clinically sterile mean? Well, a normal conception takes about 60 million sperm, and about 70% of those need to be they need to be swimmers. They need to have a head. They need to have a tail. They need to be sperm. All right, motility is what it's called. 70%. I said, well, what do I got? He said, you got less than 1 million. 60 million is what you need. You got less than 1 million. And 99% are mentally retarded or something. They have 2 heads. They've got side tails coming out of their body. They're coming out the entrance. You know, they're doing everything but what they're supposed to do. Like, okay, so you're saying there's a chance. 1%. There's a chance. So, but you know, I will tell you that perseverance kicked in a different way, and we decided we're going to do the in vitro procedure. $10,000 a try is what that costs. And we didn't have money. We didn't have $10,000, and it would take 3 times to do it. And finally, we said, after 3.5, almost 4 years of trying, enough. I'll pay any amount of money. No more sex. Please. So we did that. We sent the paperwork off, and 2 weeks later, 2 weeks after we sent that paperwork off, Kristen was pregnant. And we didn't tell anybody because we were afraid that, you know, something would happen. We would jinx it. We were pretty scared at this point in our lives after all this trying. And we had a miscarriage the year before. And I went off to an Army school, and I was there for 12 weeks. This was before the days of cell phones, all right? We knew that she was going in for an ultrasound, and she came home from that ultrasound on the day that I left. I wanted to beat her home. I didn't want to wait and get the word in Kansas, where I was at, so I drove home. And when I got home, I walked in the door, and she was crying on the couch. And I thought, here we go again. And I said, what's wrong? And she said she was crying, bawling. Just look at the pictures. And so I did. I went down and I looked at the pictures, and, you know, tears are streaming down her face. And I will tell you that I still have a hard time wrapping my head around what I saw in that picture. Because there was a pen mark with a circle, and off to the side it said baby number 1. And then another circle, and it said baby number 2. 2 eggs. 2 sperm. 1%. That is the middle finger. So the middle finger is what you do. It's an attitude, okay, about what you do when people tell you you can't do something. When people say you shouldn't still be alive. Well, thanks for the input, Doc, but I'm kind of blowing that right now. Or you shouldn't be able to write a book in 6 months. A healthy person can't write a book in 6 months. And it's written. I wrote it in 6 weeks. And then I had Robin Williams. Anybody young? Are you guys all too young to know who Robin Williams is? All right. So I thought maybe I wrote a piece of crap. It was 6 weeks. That's pretty fast. But he wrote the foreword to the book. So, and there's a ton of stories that I could share about the middle finger. It is an attitude. It is I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up. This sucks. Whatever's happened in my life is bad. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? But that teacher of mine, he's unfair. He doesn't like me. That's why he gave me the grade. Yeah, your conscience yells back in your ear. You didn't answer the damn question. What are you going to do about it? Your teacher's not fair. I hear you. You're probably right. Doesn't change the question. And you didn't answer it. What are you going to do about it? So I'm asking you now, in closing, what are you going to do about the things in your life when they don't go the way that you want them to? Because it's coming. If it hasn't come yet, it's going to come. So on that note, let's open it up to questions. Or did I just all shock you into a state of paralysis? Yes, sir. How is my family dealing with it? This is where I would ask you to use your imagination. It is hard for me and for them. You know, imagine that this is a line, and on the other end on the other side of that line is death. And we don't think about death. If you do, then I will tell you that that's no way to live. I don't live every day like I'm dying. I live every day like I want to live. So when people say you shouldn't go to Iraq, why? Well, you might die. Well, you might die. You know how many? You know how many people I've outlived in these 2.5 years of dying? So I don't think about that. I do think about it. But I can only do what I can control. My wife can only do what she can control. My boys, this is what I preach to them constantly. You can only do what you can control. I'll give you an example. Noah is one of my youngest. He's the twin. He had, there was a news story on, and it was about a murderer who had broken into somebody's house, burglarized it, and then killed the family. And for 2 or 3 nights, I was blissfully unaware of what was going on. He shared this with my wife, but didn't share it with me. This was maybe 6 months ago. And he was sleeping on the floor in our bed, and I thought he was sick. Well, Kristen finally told me, no, he's scared of this, you know, and she told me the story. And I called him in. This is now 4 days he's been sleeping in our bedroom, and he's scared to death. Now, this goes back to that personal courage thing that I was talking about. I sat him down and I said, why are you afraid? Because somebody's going to break into our house and they're going to kill us. And that's emotion. Emotion is irrational. There's nothing logical about it. There doesn't have to be. And I want you to parallel this with the concept of death and facing death. Right? So what can you do about it? Let's focus on what you can do, Noah. Let's focus on what we can do. And let's make sure we have all the information. All right? So do you lock the door at night? Do you make sure the garage door is closed? Do you have any enemies that we should know about? Maybe we can do some background search. So, you know, just filling his head with information and helping that offset the emotion and the fear that he had. So in one hand, he had the irrational fear. Not a criticism, just what is irrational. It was fear. And in the other hand, he had emptiness. No information, no further facts, except that somebody could break into his house and kill him. So I told him, we got to start filling this hand with some information. So let's talk about murder rates. Let's talk about murderers. Let's talk about crime. We just dumped it out. And you think, wow, that's pretty heavy stuff for a 12-year-old. Nope. He was taking it all in. He slept like a rock that night in his own bed. That was it. That was the end of it. So it's a roller coaster ride, balancing out the life and death, day-to-day stuff.
Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Weber, for sharing your faith, courage, and hope with us. We are a community of faith who strive to live with integrity and hope. Your life is a testimony to all we hold dearly. We thank you and ask our loving God to bless you. Thank you very much.
When Lieutenant Colonel Weber was a student here, he was disappointed that he did not earn the diamond promotion. We would like to present you with the diamond promotion.
God of life and of love, we pray a blessing upon our brother and your servant, Mark. As our community of faith looks forward to the celebration of Jesus' victory over suffering and death this Easter, we gather in the sure and certain hope that your servant Mark became one with Jesus in baptism and faith, will one day be one with him in resurrection. May your servant be strengthened each moment of each precious day, knowing that you are at his side, walking with him as the journey unfolds. May he continue to know the depth of your love and the love of family and friends and the broader community who join their hearts with his in the solidarity of a common whole. Dear brother in Christ, this community of Cretin-Derham all praise God's blessing upon you and your family in gratitude for your witness of faith and hope. May you know the loving presence of God and the peace of mind and heart that it ensures. Saint Joseph,